power of information is unbelievable, but so is the impact of fake news. With the rise of artificial intelligence, how do we prepare for what is coming, both from a communication and a technological point of view? A professional that I really admire will take the stage to talk about winning against populism, preparing for the artificial intelligence revolution. Radu Magdin, the CEO of Smartlink. Thank you
very
for
much.
joining us.
Hello, everyone. Let us see the test for the presentation. Ta-da, it works. Hello and welcome. My name is Radu Magdin, and I come from the world of emotions. To be more precise, I've been working for several years in politics, and it is a world of emotion. In business, we like to say that we sell based on emotions, but in a majority of cases, a lot of the presentations we are about reason, and the best way is to convince people to do something. When talking about this topic, when talking about artificial intelligence, you should really know the fact that it's really important who says the right story first. As you can see, my presentation looks forward to go ahead of me. And the reason is very simple. As you well know from a proverb, when is the right moment to say somebody you love him or her before somebody else does? The same with artificial intelligence and the proper communications in this sense. It's really important to get our story right as professionals, as passionate people for this field before other people do it. Now, artificial intelligence should be on your radar not just for the economic component or the technical component, but also because it's political. It's political because it impacts society. It impacts politics. It impacts you. It's about us here. It's about me as an individual. It's about the wider us, the wider world, us as humanity. So it's not by chance that politics will play a serious part in the years and months to come. So first of all, I would like to put 3 steps on your radar as regards how we view artificial intelligence and politics. First of all, it starts with the people. It may sound popular or it may sound populist, but the truth is, it all boils down to us, to our feelings. Why? Because whether robots like it or not, they can't vote. We do. We will vote in Romania, for example, at least twice in 2019 and at least twice in 2020. There will be a moment where, of course, there will be several issues on the agenda. And this is where the actual play is there. The good news for you, for all of us, is that people are busy with other topics. There is a famous joke in Romania that even when the end of the world will come, we'll be fine. Why? Because we're 50 years backwards. But the truth is, in matters of technology, we all are forwards. And one of the basic secrets in this line of business is that artificial intelligence is already here. Look at the news. Only in the past 2-3 weeks, we have seen issues and topics and themes that normally we would not expect to see unless, let's say, 10 years ago when we were watching Star Trek and beyond. Last week, we heard about artificial intelligence anchors back in China. Is it normal? Is it not normal? Is it okay? Don't excuse the language when I simplify. If I say okay or normal, it's because that all too often, as professionals in our field, we're tempted to be complex. We like to be viewed as smart. We like to be considered people of substance. But the truth is, in politics, and in order to win hearts and minds, we need to be simple. Do remember that. Now, let us move forward. And there should be a promise for all these people, for you, for me, for all of us. There should be a new dream. How do we see society in the future? Always remember that we are simple as human beings. And normally we look at these 3 things. We look at stability, we look at prosperity, and we look at security. All emotions around these 3 topics are bound to affect our decisions. Separate from that, a 3rd step, a deal and the story around it. You know, you heard from the 30s the idea of a new deal. Well, I would put on your radar the fact that we need a new deal for the 4th industrial revolution. How many people here in this room have parents or grandparents or even friends who are familiar with the first 3 revolutions? Not to mention somebody who can really explain what the 4th industrial revolution is all about. This is important. Why? Because normally, our attention span is limited. And whether you like it or not, news by news, day by day, specific ideas come to confirm or to deny our prejudice. It's really important how you, as professionals, are evangelists in your line of business and start explaining to all the people around you, to communities, what AI is all about. It's basically about defining and redefining normalcy. It's a game of hope versus a game of fear. And all too often, and this is the reason why I named this presentation how I named it, about winning against populism, it's not by chance that we need to talk about this now, because populism is all too easy. And speaking of populism and easy, 2 or 3 more slides on your radar on the reason side before moving almost totally on the emotional issues. Words. Be very careful about the words you're using. Words are very important. Winning, in the end, right? We all want to win. We live in times of strategic competition where the commander-in-chief, right, periodically talks about winning. Populism, it's also about defining the enemy. Be very careful, both in your line of business, but also more generally in life whenever there is competition. It's really important to define who is the enemy, who represents the good guys and gals and the bad side. All too often, we fail to forget about the issue of preparation. What is the presentation in the end all about? It's about a preparation for the future, which is already here. Artificial intelligence, of course, no need for further recommendations, the new guy or the new gal in town. And revolution or evolution, why do I mention this? Because, again, words matter. Whenever you say evolution, you're prepared for something incremental. Evolution is supposed to be something good, right? We're moving from here to here to here. That's evolution. Whenever you hear revolution, it can be something good, but at the same time, you have the feeling that it's something boiling. You have the feeling that suddenly a situation moves from here to here. This here could be good or could be bad. It's up to us. Now, moving forward, some other things should be on your radar in our quest for clarity. It's also about how do you define this campaign? How do you communicate artificial intelligence? Is it about now? I mean, do I communicate? Do I do this presentation here and I stop? Or is this a permanent campaign? And I would put on your radar, be permanent campaigners. The amounts of change that are coming, the wave that is already here, rising slowly and surely, well, in fact, faster than we would expect, needs permanent evangelists. Let's see a little bit also how do we define success, because in this quest, you start speaking and you speak once and twice and 3 times, and you never really know, have we achieved our purpose, Master Jedi, And you should always have this question in mind. How would you define winning in terms of communicating artificial intelligence in populist times? Happy people, lots of artificial intelligence around, so the new normalcy. Family, kids, house, dog, cat, but hey, also a robot, a hologram. I know, a nice fridge with an Internet of Things, perhaps opening or not the door for you in case you're fatter or slimmer than the average. Populism. How do we define success? Basically, keeping those guys out of power. If you're looking at more and more into the news, particularly in Europe, one of the major tests of our current political lifetimes lies in May next year, European-wide EU elections. Fears in Brussels and national capitals are that populists around different countries may rise and may actually have a pretty strong voice and force in the European Parliament. And here is what I would propose we totally switch into emotion land. Why? Because emotions are important. Normally, we're asked, particularly in academia, what do you think about something? But the truth is, whenever we're talking about fundamental changes in our life, about fundamental choices, and about voting, it's about emotions. You don't ask yourselves before a presidential election, what do you think about Johnny? You're basically asking yourself, how do I feel about Johnny becoming, or Jane, becoming president? This is highly important and should be on your radar. Now, there is also a beauty of mismatch. The fact that we're starting to have news about artificial intelligence almost all the time. At the same time, in politics, the time of test is election time, which normally comes every 4 or 5 years. And of course, you don't really talk artificial intelligence in all elections, right? I mean, you're becoming mayor of, let's say, Galatz, or you're becoming mayor of Vienna. It's not really depending on how lovely your fleet of robots are and how many you're going to bring with you at the mayor's house. But nonetheless, the very fact that we have this almost now daily, if not weekly, portion of news on artificial intelligence is that we're starting to ask ourselves questions. Artificial intelligence is more and more on our radar, and whether you like it or not, it's starting to win hearts and minds or lose some. Remember the previous presentation, you know? Some of you, I looked out of curiosity to some of your faces here in the room, and I think particularly some of you who are, despite very, very, let's say, confident in your own powers, can consider yourselves in the middle class. When you saw the title that some of the jobs from the middle class may disappear, you kind of went like, perhaps the future may not be as bright. This is important. Why? Because depending on the amount of news that we're seeing, those news will be processed unless we really have, let's say, cultural translators for artificial intelligence among influencers, analysts, and other people in the communications ecosystem. They risk to be derailed. Why? Because it's also easy to say no. It's also easy to be a populist. Now, moving forward and talking of populism, what should be on your radar is the fact that populism has been here all the time. But sometimes there are really good moments to be a populist. For example, why are we faced with such a big populist wave right now in the Western world, but also globally? The amount of change has created, with globalization, has created, of course, a certain amount of winners and losers. Winners will not complain, but losers tend to blame this on somebody else. Whether we're talking about a foreign nation, and you have seen how the campaign in the US has worked against China, against Mexico, and so on. It worked for part of the audience. Whether we're talking about some kind of a conspiracy theory, the occult, the deep state, the people who are out to get us, including myself probably whenever I exit this room, or a specific technology. Don't exclude this from your radar. Why? Because populism is easy because it makes appeal to gut feeling. And gut feelings are basically about screening the agenda and saying if something is right or wrong, if somebody or something is an enemy or not of the people. Always look, whenever you're seeing in the media stories that talk about unfairness, exploitations by the elites, and why not a question? Are humans becoming a minority in an artificial intelligence world? Be ready. The populist wave is mounting, and it's coming to your industry. Now, of course, some of these people are highly, highly talented, and it's hard to be a good mainstream communicator. Typically, you hear about populist so-called solutions. If we were to boil down and simplify, I would say block, say no. Basically, there was a very good pun for the Brexit referendum. If you don't know, say no. Imagine such a question on a referendum on technology. Should such a referendum be there at a certain moment in time? How many people actually know what deep learning is? How many people would react well to a question like, to a properly framed question like, do you trust a robot more than a human? Would you like to talk more with a hologram than with a fellow neighbor? Well, depends on the neighbor, of course. But leaving joking aside, be prepared for that. And the second big narrative or solution would be escape, break free. I don't know how many of you saw that movie, Midnight in Paris. From my perspective, it's one of the greatest movies done as regards an alleged golden age. You know, the two meet in Paris, for those of you who have seen the movie, right? And they want to come back in a way in some kind of golden age. For him, it's the 30s. For her, it's way back, and so on. The truth is, there was never a perfect age. And as you will see further on, one of the paradoxes that we're seeing right now is the fact that hope, growth, progress, the prospect of a better future have never been better than nowadays. We are living better as humanity than ever. Then how come very few people are actually happy? This should be on your radar because, again, we are in emotions land. Is there a solution? And here is where I finally propose bridging the gap in between reason and emotion. Are there solutions? Because if you're looking at the frustration as regards populism, a lot of people are in fact complaining about the idea of control. Things are escaping my control. My life, my destiny is no longer under my control. Our life, our country is no longer under our control. Perhaps control can be the basis of the solution, while asking, of course, the basic question, And the basic question is, does artificial intelligence control me, or me as a human, I control artificial intelligence? Of course, it's also about, and this is where the fun starts, how do you define control? Control over what? Control of identity, over destiny, jobs, laws, power to influence? And also remember that the backlash is coming. It's inevitable. There has always been a backlash whenever we talked about major economic changes. Major economic changes they entail social and political upheaval. We are already living in a time where a lot of a rules-based international society and niche, like trade, for example, they're under pressure. Not necessarily only from populists. Let us not make a populist anybody who asks a legitimate question. Issues that have to do with our privacy, with the way our data is handled, with the way our society is supposed to be built, our values. These are legitimate questions. The major difference is if somebody comes and denies progress by demonizing the various options and by refusing a proper debate. It's not by chance that I really wanted to put populism on your radar, because we're already starting to complain about fake news. Debates in society are normal. If a debate in society will always have winners and losers. A majority at the end of the day imposes itself. But we can do this the proper way. And always remember, the proper way means communicating how people feel or should feel about their lives. Ta-da. Speaking of control. Now, looking also at the emotions that should be on your radar, of course, we're talking anger. Speaking of control, we're talking the idea of powerlessness, slavery, and also the idea of fairness. Is this fair or not? And so on. Here, in a nutshell, in a slide, look at the fact that the global debate has already started, but the angles are different. Just to give you one example, in countries like Russia and China, which are advancing more and more, particularly also in the military and the civilian use of AI, the angle is augmentation. I want more. And it's also combined with the idea of national pride, right? Made in China 2025. Win, position the country as the leader in terms of artificial intelligence. If you're looking at the West, whenever we heard normally about artificial intelligence, it was mostly on the idea of efficiency. And here I wanted to put on your radar the fact that perhaps we should be thinking very well in how we launch a series of issues. Why? Because otherwise we will be vulnerable to the idea of change. A lot of the people will be afraid about losing jobs if we don't properly define the process by which, the dream by which, the social contract by which, and the recipe by which I will be successful in the years to come. For any given citizen of the world, it's much more relevant how I pay my bills, I support myself and my family, rather about the geek stuff. Okay, you may say, yeah, but it's true. Look, underdeveloped countries and they have a mobile and they don't really have a toilet. Also true, but at the same time, that's not necessarily their dream. They want to have a better house, and they want to have a house, a better income, and live well. Now, let us move forward, speaking of control, and our basic dilemma about who controls who And I would like to put on your radar my last slide. Not on the promise, because of course we needed to make a promise about better you, better family, better community, safer country, but about the plan. The plan should have two components. Let us define first artificial intelligence. What you in politics normally say, I first say who I am before somebody else says it. So basically, make sure we properly define artificial intelligence with all this complement and educate, educate, educate at the end. But also, defense. Do mount a proper defense for your technologies and be prepared for some serious Q&A in case you are attacked in any fora by a populist. This time talking for all of you, business evangelists and so on. Make sure you are precise, you are transparent, you are believers in critical thinking, and make sure also that you talked with fellow political leaders at a local, national, or global level. Why? Because at a certain level in time, people have to vote. At a certain moment in time, this amount of change will not just be B2B. It will also have to do with government. It will also have to do with administration. And whether we help or not a leader understand our products, understand the future, and actively promote it, makes the difference in between a win and a fail for you, and also for humanity, in case such a product could really help us. Ta-da. Now, this is only part of a conversation. I propose the hashtag communicating AI. I'm very happy to take, if there's still any more time. No? Harass me on Twitter. Thank you for having me, and have a great day.